So now, moving forward, we will have a really unique session. The topic and the speakers and the moderator. The topic will take you from clinical safety to real-world data and real-world evidence. So it will be really a nice journey. And the speakers, I will leave the moderator to introduce them. We have a great faculty for this session. And the moderator is my dearest friend, Dr. Mareez William. Dr. Mareez is a pharmacist by education from Ain Shams University. And currently, she is a regional pharmacovigilance manager for Middle East, Turkey, and Africa in Acino. She is the one who successfully set up a great pharmacovigilance system for them. She initiated this for Egypt and Saudi and UAE and different countries. And she is the one responsible for pharmacovigilance activities in the region. I see that Mareez is one of the people who I like their approach to make a good balance between the professional life and the personal life, which is something that we all aim to. So work-life balance, hopefully we can do it as much as we can. She's one of the members of the PV GCC Summit every year since a long time. And she's really passionate about network and growth and focusing on the patient safety as a PV expert in the region. So please share with me welcoming Dr. Mareez.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for introducing me. Hello, all. I'm happy to introduce you now the speakers of our next session. We have with us Dr. Heba Khalil. She is the General Manager of the Clinical Trials Administration of the Egyptian Drug Authority, established the first infrastructure for clinical trial oversight since 2007, and played a pivotal role in shaping the regulatory landscape of clinical trials in Egypt. Currently, she is the speaker and EDA representative as a member of the Research Forum, the Technical Coordinating Committee of AVRF, and the Working Group. Please join us on stage. We have also Dr. Alaa Aldabbas. She is a co-founder and director of Inspire Pharma Consultancy. She is a highly regarded expert in PV and regulatory compliance with a pharmacy degree and extensive experience in the pharmaceutical industry. Alaa has built a strong foundation in ensuring patient safety and adherence to regulatory standards. She is passionate about advancing PV practices and fostering innovation, and dedicated to ensuring the highest standards of patient safety within the healthcare industry. Please, Dr. Alaa, join us. Also, our third valuable speaker, Dr. Alaa Esaifan. She is a co-founder and director, PV specialist, regulatory and quality expert at Inspire Pharma Consultancy. She brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the field of drug safety and regulatory compliance. She holds a pharmacy degree, a certification in clinical trial fundamentals from Monash University, and a certification in pharmacovigilance from University of New South Wales. Also, she has been instrumental in setting up and optimizing PV practices, leveraging her extensive experience across Australia and the Middle East. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Alaa and join us to the stage. And finally, we have Mr. Zahir Mohamed. He is a medical lead innovation hub transformation at Sanofi. He serves as the medical lead in the Gulf countries with over a decade of diverse experience in the healthcare sector. Zahir has demonstrated experience in roles spanning clinical research, medical governance, real-world evidence, and transformation. His leadership has been crucial in driving medical transformation, enhancing data generation, and leveraging real-world evidence. Zahir's expertise in spearheading key evidence generation initiatives and strategic partnership is well recognized. Please join me in welcoming our valuable speakers, all of them, and enjoy the session.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Heba Khalil from the Egyptian Drug Authority. my talk today is about the safety data in the clinical trial. I'll go through the development of the drug very in the early stage, and then preclinical, clinical, and all the data requirements throughout the development of the drug to be finally approved as a finished product and approved for the clinical trial commencement. First, I'll speak about the EDA achievement, general consideration of safety efficacy, safety evaluation, drug development, as I have said, different terminology and classes of adverse event, and how can I judge if it is a mild, moderate, severe, and the timing and the responsibility for reporting of these side effects. EDA is the first African NRA to be recognized from the WHO as a maturity level 3 for both medicine and vaccines. There is international collaboration between EDA and other entities. By October 2021, EDA became an observer of the international cooperation on cosmetics and regulations. By November 2021 until June 2023 as an observer, and then become a member on the ICH. At March 2022, associate member of the International Coalition of Medicines Regulatory Authority. By May 2022, IPRP MC member and vice chair of the International Pharmaceutical Regulators Program. By September 2023, a session applicant of the Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme. So many collaboration, as you see. I don't be long sharing in the EDQM, associate member of the WHO National Control Laboratory Network for Biological. There is regional contribution all over the African country. EDA is a regional center of the regulatory excellence, RCORE vaccine, providing training for the different countries at Africa. GMP, technical committee regulatory capacity, partnership of the African vaccine manufacturer, African Vaccine Regulatory Forum, AVAREF, Pharmacovigilance Technical Committee, Medical Device Technical Committee. We are sharing in different committees in the African country. Bilateral collaboration between EDA, Egypt is very keen on collaborating and supporting other sister countries, South Sudan, Yemen, Democratic Congo, Rwanda, Zambia, South Africa, Nigeria, and other countries, as you have seen. Also, Egypt launched the Egyptian Vaccine Manufacturer Alliance at November 2024, taking the support of many international countries, America, France, and so on, as you have seen, with the local manufacturer, Vaxera, Heba, and other manufacturer, and other governmental partner. Then we come to our item regarding the safety and efficacy collaboration, so that by the end we are collecting more and more safety information about our medicinal or drug product to be finally issued and approving for the clinical trial to start. First of all, the quality drug product must meet stringent quality control standard to ensure consistency of the potency, purity, and sterility. Then we come to the safety point. The non-clinical safety study should be adequate to characterize the potential adverse events that could happen in the human being during occurrence of the clinical trial. It's not a must to occur. However, it gives us an indication that it might occur. Also to ensure safety and minimize the risk of adverse events that can happen to the human being during the clinical trial. The efficacy drug product must demonstrate effectiveness in the treatment of the disease or preventive of a disease in case of vaccines. Safety evaluation. The development of a pharmaceutical product is a stepwise process, as we have said, involving an evaluation of both animal and human efficacy and safety information. The goal of the non-clinical safety evaluation include characterization of the toxic effect for the target organ. Sometimes our drug product is toxic, and then we can see it after using it in the animal. That organ, it can cause toxicity in some organ. Also does dose dependence. Is this side effect happen as a result of a dose? Then we can reduce the dose and see whether this toxic effect will happen or no. Relation to the exposure to our drug, and when appropriate, potential reversibility if the side effect can be reversible. Sometimes some side effects can happen, but it is reversible. This information used to estimate an initial safety starting dose, as we have said. Sometimes we can find a toxic effect related to a specific dose, then we can reduce this dose. And those range for the human trial to identify parameters for clinical monitoring. Clinical monitoring sometimes in a very simplified way, we have seen مثلا in the animal it causes an effect on the renal, on the kidneys. Then we should have identifying parameter for monitoring the effect on the kidney and so on. Critical steps in the process of clinical trial authorization for the approval for the clinical trial to start in human being. We collect data, analyze, interpretation of the data from the non-clinical safety study, conducting to support human clinical trial. To ensure that the risk associated with the new drug or intervention do not overweight the potential benefit, this is the most critical points that we should get from our preclinical study, that the benefit overcomes the risk. The safety evaluation process continues across the whole product development stage, as we have said, assessment of safety data collected from the clinical trial and from the post-marketing, and lastly from the real-world data. Drug development, R&D development, بعد كده الكواليتي يمكن هي مش باينه هنا, and then the preclinical and the clinical, and by the end governmental review and approval for the authorization of a drug to be found in the market. The preclinical trial phases. Preclinical testing is research conducted in an early experimental stage, بتبقى ممكن in vivo and أو in vitro. Using experimental animal. الكي activities فيها development of product composition, ممكن أغير في product composition, example drug substance, antigen, adjuvant used, based on the results that I found in the preclinical. Toxicity testing is one of the most important parameters to be measured during preclinical to evaluate potential side effect. Genotoxicity in some product, if it is supposed to be, carcinogenicity in some product, reproductive toxicity, evaluating the effect on fertility, pregnancy, and offspring. But these genotoxicity, carcinogenicity, reproductive toxicity, immunogenicity is not done for all the product, but for the products that can do this. Outcome, if the product shows promises, it moves to the human clinical trial. The preclinical should be designed for assessment of safety, toxicity, pharmacodynamic, and pharmacokinetic information, as I have said. Then phase 1 clinical trial, which is done in a small group, 2,200, the aim of which for the healthy or diseased patient, it could be for this or that, to assess safety and identify the optimal dose. Phase 2, up to several hundred, 100 to 300 people with the disease condition. Here, sometimes it's for healthy volunteers, but in phase 2, it must be a disease condition or the condition which I am searching for. The purpose, showing efficacy and side effects. Proposed side effect. Phase 3, a large-scale trial for 3,000 volunteers who have the disease or the condition. The purpose, طبعا efficacy is number 1, and monitoring of adverse drug reaction, and comparing it to an existing drug that have been licensed, if this is applicable. If there is a comparator in the market, we can use it as a comparator in our study. Phase 4, it is a post-marketing study, several thousands volunteers having the disease or the stated condition to collect long-term safety data and monitor effectiveness in the real world. Drug risk, benefit, and optimize the use of the drug. Here I'll explain the terminology that we use in describing terminology used in the determining or describing the side effects that we found. First, adverse event, any unwanted medical occurrence that may be or may not related to our product. I'm using a very simplified way. And the whole description is written if you want to go back to it, but I'm using the very fast and simplified way to show it to you. Adverse drug reaction, concern unintended response to a medicinal product. Response, then it is related to is characterized by the fact that a causal relationship between the drug and the occurrence is suspected. يبقى في الأولانية it may be or may be not related to the drug. هنا adverse drug reaction, there is a relation between what happened and our drug. It is suspected to be related to our investigational medicinal product. Unexpected adverse drug reaction, adverse reaction that happen, the nature or severity of which is not constituent with the applicable product information. I wasn't expecting this to happen from our investigational product. For example, if it is a product is already registered from the pamphlet, we didn't see this side effect before, or investigational brochures that have been submitted by the company for evaluation before starting of the clinical trial. A serious adverse event or reaction is an unwanted medical occurrence that at any dose can happen. امتى اقول when to say that is this as categorize what we have said as a serious adverse event if it is caused a death or life-threatening condition, requires hospitalization, persistent or significant disability to the volunteers, any congenital anomalies and or birth defect for pregnant women, important medical events that may result lately may need hospitalization or intensive medication to prevent a serious conditions that we have spoke of preventing death or threatening life and so on. Serious adverse drug reaction, a serious adverse event if suspected to be medicinal product related. يبقى serious adverse drug reaction suspected to be related to the drug. Suspected unexpected serious adverse reaction due to medicine administration, due to our medicine in a clinical trial that are unexpected and serious. يعني احنا ادينا دواء, it was unexpected to happen this serious adverse event, but it has happened and it is related to our drug. A classification of the severity, as I have said, mild, moderate, and severe. Seriousness, serious or non-serious. Relatedness, certain, probably, and I'll explain it in a hurry also. First, we'll take about the severity. It is a mild, in case of a mild, it is a transient event requiring no special treatment or interfering with the patient's daily activities. Can I slow down or it's okay for you? Okay? Moderate events introducing some level of inconvenience and may interfere with the daily activities of the volunteer, but does not need sophisticated therapeutic measures. Severe, unacceptable, or intolerated events significantly interrupting patient's normal life and may need therapy or even hospitalization. Seriousness, whether serious or non-serious. Serious met one of the seriousness criteria as we have said before in the slide before. Non-serious doesn't meet any of the seriousness criteria, doesn't affect the cause death, doesn't cause threatening life-threatening condition, and so on. Relatedness, certain. I'm certain that this side effects that happen is related to my investigational product. Probably are likely related. Most probably it is related to our investigational product, but we are not sure. Possibly related, but we are not sure. But unlikely, it is most probably not related to our investigational product. The other two before, it's most probably related, but now it is most probably unrelated. Unassessable, we cannot judge whether it is related or unrelated to our investigational product. Not related, we are certainly sure that this side effect is not related to our investigational product. I can give you a small example in a hurry bardo. If someone in a clinical trial, he go trying to pass the road and the car accident, he was dead. Can we say this is a serious adverse event or no? Yes, this is a serious adverse event. Causality. This is what we are speaking about. Relatedness. Maybe it is not related at all. It is considered to be a serious adverse event. But after analyzing what happened and the drug is not related, then we are certainly not related or related to our drug. Expectedness, expected an adverse reaction that is previously observed and documented in the applicable product information. In the pamphlet, it is written, it can cause that and this and this and that. Unexpected, it is not present in the pamphlet, either on the investigation brochure submitted by the drug. This is what I have explained in a simplified way, but this is written clearly if you want to go back to the information. Right. Adverse event, time of reporting to the regulatory authority. In case of serious adverse event, as we have said, fatal or life-threatening, if yes, it is life-threatening or fatal, notification to the regulatory authority within 24 hours. Initial report will be submitted within 7 days. If it is not fatal or life-threatening, then notification to the EDA within 7 days, initial report within additional 8 days. If it is not serious events, أي side effect زي high temperature, أي bone abdominal ache, الحاجات اللي هي mild, reporting in the progress follow-up which is submitted to the regulatory authority every 4 months. This is the قيامس, this is the form on which we receive adverse events that happen. It is widely known and according to the reference is ICHE 2A. VigiFlow, there is a collaboration between the clinical trial department at the Egyptian Drug Authority and the Pharmacovigilance department. During running of the clinical trial, as we have said, there is an issue of adverse events, serious, mild, moderate, and so on. This is is uploaded on the XML or QIAMS form to the Vigilance Center. Evaluation of the safety evaluation, safety reporting, what is the importance of which? It can change in the dose, target population, needed more monitoring, even can change the consent form if we have more side effects to be written in the consent form. Who is responsible to report this? The principal investigator is responsible for reporting all serious adverse events to the sponsor, to the IRB, the Egyptian Drug Authority, and the Supreme Council. As you know, there is 2 high entities in Egypt controlling the clinical trial, which is the Supreme Council and the EDA, Egyptian Drug Authority. The annual development safety update report should be submitted. The review and the evaluation of the safety data from the clinical trial may result in update of the protocol, investigation brochure, informed consent materials, and related documents. Can we stop in this? No, we can depend also in gain more and more safety data from the real world. Data in the drug development helps to assess long-term product effectiveness, and also it can detect rare side effects that can happen from a medicinal product. A role of real-world data is completeness of the clinical trial data, use for post-marketing surveillance and safety monitoring, as I have said, support label expansion and new indication. Sometimes, as you have said, some doctors use the drug find more effects of the drug rather than the one indicated, enhances understanding of the biological product performance in diverse population, especially biological product. We cannot depend on just the clinical trials because of the its diverse effect, and also immunological response due to biological product. Real-world data give us real-world evidence, which is the result of the analysis of the real-world data. Real-world data and real-world evidence support regulatory decision-making for the drug and biological product. Thank you very much.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the safety management and clinical trial training from industry perspective. Let's start by telling you about Inspire Pharma Consultancy story. Me and Alaa, together we established Inspire Pharma Consultancy with passion, and it's built on a foundation of trust and care. As Australian Jordanians, my colleague Alaa and I bring a unique blend of cultural and professional experience gained from living and working in Australia and the Middle East. You may have noticed the kangaroo in our logo. The kangaroo, an iconic symbol of Australia, holds a special place in our hearts for what it represents. Like a mother kangaroo caring for her joy, Inspire Pharma Consultancy fosters each client partnership with tailored services, dedicated support, and unwavering care. By the end of this session, you will gain a clear understanding of what comprehensive and compliant safety management in clinical trials means and why it matters. We will explore the history and key principles shaping safety practices, dive into the ICH guidelines, what they are, how to use them, and how to read them effectively. You will also recognize the limitations of clinical trial data and why post-marketing surveillance is crucial. We will break down the roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders in ensuring clinical safety. Finally, we will take you through how Inspire Pharma Consultancy can support safety management across the entire clinical trial life cycle. Let's get started. I'll pass to my colleague, Alaa, to continue.
So what is safety management in clinical trials? From the International Council for Harmonization guideline, safety management involves the continuous process that ensures the well-being of participants and the integrity of the study. It involves monitoring, assessing, and reporting the safety of the investigational product throughout the trial. This means identifying, documenting, and evaluating all adverse events and serious adverse events to determine their impact and ensure appropriate actions are taken to mitigate risks. So why is it crucial to monitor and manage patient safety in clinical trials? Because it is the foundation of ethical research, regulatory approval, and scientific integrity. First and foremost, patient protection. It is our priority. Identifying and assessing risk early helps prevent harm and ensures participant safety throughout the trial. Then comes regulatory compliance. Adhering to international standards like the ICH guidelines and local regulations isn't just a formality. It is what ensures trial data as accepted, paving the way for approvals and market access. Also, data integrity and validity. Reliable results come from regular safety monitoring. Detecting adverse events and safety signal preserve the credibility of trial data, ensuring proper decision-making and also, importantly, saving company reputation and trust. So while clinical trials are essential for evaluating drug safety, they don't tell the whole story. What are the limitations of clinical trial when it comes to patient safety? First, small sample size and short duration. Clinical trials typically involve a limited number of participants and are conducted over a fixed period of time. This makes it difficult to detect rare and long-term side effects, which may only emerge after years of real-world data. Also, clinical trials often exclude high-risk groups, such as elderly, pregnant women, or those with multiple health conditions. Another limitation is limited drug interaction data. Clinical trial control for many variables, meaning patients are often taking only the investigational drug, but in reality, people take multiple medications, leading to potential interaction that were never tested in trials. Another challenge is detecting rare adverse event. If a serious side effect occurs in only 1 in 100,000 patients, it is unlikely to be detected in a trial with just a few thousand participants. Another limitation to clinical trial is ethnic and geographic variability. In addition to that, there's the issue of limited long-term safety data. Some side effects take years to develop, but most trials don't last long enough to capture these trials. So while clinical trials are the first step, they are not the final word. Ongoing pharmacovigilance ensures that drug remains safe. History has taught us painful lessons. One of the most tragic stories was the thalidomide story. Thalidomide was marketed as a harmless sedative in the 1950s. It was widely prescribed to pregnant women until the horrifying truth came to light. Thousands of children were born with devastating birth defects. Thalidomide tragedy reshaped drug safety forever and highlighted the importance of post-marketing surveillance. Why do we have safety regulation in clinical trial? It didn't happen overnight. It was shaped by history. It started with the Nuremberg Code in 1947, a response to the doctor trial where physicians were held accountable for unethical experiments. This code sets the first clear rules for protecting human subjects, emphasizing voluntary consent and ethical research. Then came the Declaration of Helsinki in 1964, developed by the World Medical Association to build on these principles. It became the global standard for ethical research. By 1990, the need for global consistency led to the formation of the International Council for Harmonization, ICH. Regulations from Europe, Japan, and the EU and the US came together to create unified guidelines, ensuring that clinical trials follow high-quality, ethical, and scientific standards. Now let's highlight the most important guidelines that govern pharmacovigilance practices across the globe, which is the ICH guidelines. What is ICH? The International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceutical for Human Use, ICH, was established in 1990 to create a global framework for drug development and regulatory standards by bridging together regulatory authorities and the pharmaceutical companies, industry. ICH ensured that medicine undergo rigorous and standardized safety evaluation, starting from clinical trials and continuing throughout the drug's life cycle. Next, what are the ICH guidelines? ICH developed scientific and technical guidelines that shaped how clinical trials are designed, conducted, and monitored to ensure patient safety. Why are ICH critical for clinical trial safety? First, minimizing risks. ICH guidelines ensure a robust system for ensuring patient safety from study design throughout the whole clinical trial phases. Another thing is harmonization. The guidelines aim to unify the clinical trial guidelines across the globe to ensure compliance. And another thing is it emphasized the importance of continuous post-marketing surveillance to monitor long-term drug effects. And now I'll pass to my colleague, Alaa, to take you through how to read the ICH guidelines.
So continuing with the ICH guideline, now let's briefly take you through how to read the ICH guidelines and where you can find the guideline governing good clinical trial practices. The ICH guidelines are categorized into 4 main areas: quality Q, safety S, efficacy E, and multidisciplinary M. Each category plays a vital role in ensuring the safety, efficacy, and the quality of medicines throughout clinical development and beyond. The first two focuses, Q and S, focuses on non-clinical settings, while E and M focus on clinical practices and post-marketing guidelines. Now, let's focus on the guidelines that cover clinical trial design, data management, pharmacovigilance, and post-marketing safety requirements. We will talk about the efficacy guidelines. The subsections governing safety in clinical trials and post-marketing are E2A to E2F. These guidelines define pharmacovigilance standards, including expedited and periodic safety reporting. Then we have the E3 guideline, which outline the structure and content of clinical study reports to ensure comprehensive data analysis. Then the E6 guidelines that established good clinical practice standards, ensuring ethical and scientific trial integrity. Now, let's discuss the key stakeholders in clinical trials. Who are the key stakeholders in clinical trials? First, we have the sponsors. They can be pharmaceutical companies, biotech firms, or research institutions that fund and oversee trials. We also have the investigators and site staff, the professional responsible for conducting the trials. Another important stakeholder is the contract research organization, CROs. They manage trial operations, regulatory submissions, data management, safety monitoring, and site operation, ensuring efficiency and compliance. Also, a crucial stakeholder is the regulatory authorities, including local regulators. They ensure compliance with safety and ethical guidelines. And finally, we have patients and advocacy groups. These groups promote awareness, support patients' rights, and influence policies for patient-centric research. Each of these stakeholders plays a vital role in ensuring the success and integrity of clinical trials. Now, let's talk about some of the stakeholders' responsibilities, starting with the sponsor. Sponsors play a critical role in ensuring a clinical safety by establishing robust monitoring and reporting system. Their responsibilities span from safeguarding participant safety, maintaining compliance, and ensure data integrity. The first and foremost responsibility of a sponsor is participant safety. Every aspect of the trial must prioritize the well-being of participants by minimizing risks, ensuring informed consent, and implementing safety measures throughout the study. To support this, agreements and responsibilities must be well defined. Sponsors need to establish safety management plan and clinical trial master plan to ensure clarity in roles. Also, regulatory compliance is a key. Sponsors must adhere to ICH GCP guidelines, local regulations, and ethical standards to ensure clinical trials are conducted safely and effectively. Another thing under the responsibilities of a sponsor is having robust pharmacovigilance system that must be in place to ensure compliance with safety reporting requirements. This includes the timely collection and submission of adverse events and serious adverse events to the required regulatory formats. Sponsors are also involved in causality assessment to ensure accurate evaluation. Sponsors are also responsible for safety signal detection. To proactively and manage risks, sponsors should implement risk management plans. Also, the sponsors are responsible for the training of all, also responsible for the trainings and safety updates such as DSUR and to submit it to regulatory authorities. Let's talk about the investigator role in clinical trials. The top priority is also participant safety, ensuring the well-being and rights of all participants throughout the study. The investigator is responsible to ensure that informed consent is obtained from the participants, making sure participation fully and that the participants fully understand the study before enrolling. Investigators must report adverse events and serious adverse events promptly, follow up on them, and assist in causality assessment. Investigators must also ensure ongoing safety monitors, strict protocol compliance, and accurate data recording in case report forms or safety systems. Also, clear communication with different stakeholders is crucial for addressing safety concerns. Another thing, the investigator is responsible to train staff on safety procedures and ensure proper medical care for the patients. Now let's explore the let's explore the contract research organization role. So the top priority for all stakeholders, as you may have noticed, is participant safety. CROs work to ensure that all safety measures are in place to protect trial participants throughout the study. CROs support sponsors by setting up safety systems. CROs oversight safety processes, including AEs and SAEs, management, and ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. CROs also support the training of site staff on safety management and reporting. They also facilitate communication between sponsors, regulatory bodies, and the trial sites to ensure smooth operations. So, at Inspire Pharma Consultancy, we are dedicated to ensuring the highest standards of safety management throughout every stage of the clinical trial life cycle. First, at the project setup stage, we work closely with the stakeholders to finalize the safety section of the study protocol. Also, we participate in developing a well-defined and tailored safety management plan that aligns with the protocol. We also set up and configure protocols in the safety database to enable proper data collection. We can also support you with end-to-end adverse event management, providing comprehensive services, including inbox management, triaging, processing AE cases in a validated safety systems. This includes coding events, drafting narratives, and generating follow-up queries. Additionally, we add the medical reviewer assessment, generate COMs, and share them with the relevant stakeholder. We also ensure timely expedited reporting to regulatory authorities and ethics committees as required. We also complete reconciliation activities for adverse event listing with the relevant stakeholders to ensure data accuracy and compliance. At Inspire Pharma Consultancy, our goal to support you in navigating the complexities of clinical safety, ensuring that patient safety remains the top priority throughout the clinical trial life cycle. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm the last man standing before you and the lunch. I don't know, are you ready to cope with 10, 15 minutes more? Yes. Okay, cool. So my name is Zahir Shwikhat. I'm operating at Sanofi as Medical Lead Innovation Hub, out of which we have a dedicated function for real-world evidence, which we started 3 to 4 years back. Today, together, we're going to have an overview on what real-world evidence is, although some of my co-speakers have already addressed some of these topics, but also to talk about the GCC situations toward real-world evidence. So the green one is to move forward, right? Okay. Before starting, just a quick reflection. When it comes to shopping, my wife and I have different strategies. She meticulously looks at what we have in the fridge, check which kind of guest we're going to have, meals planned for that week, and then she prepares a list and go to the shop. For me, actually, I just grab the cart and throw whatever I find at the grocery. How does that end? My wife, it's only one. She's in the room, by the way, so I might have problems. Yeah, I just have one. So my wife ended up with the exact amount of food that we need, the exact ingredients, and she's cautious about the bill. For me, that's totally the opposite. Actually, we barely end with food. We get out of supply after 2 to 3 days. Usually I get things that are not even food, and the bill is very expensive. So this reflection is about what? Is about the importance of relying on data in our decision making and how it can save cost, but it also saves supplies. In our healthcare industry, we talk about medication, we talk about ancillaries. And of course, this reflects exactly as an anecdote, but seriously, how all of us in the healthcare industry takes our decision. So today, we'll know more about what real-world evidence and real-world data is, because there is a difference. What are the source of data, whether there is a competition between RCT and RWE, or whether there is another relationship. What RWE plays as a role in value and decision-making, and finally, the optimization of real-world evidence through artificial intelligence and the situation in GCC. The FDA used to define the real-world evidence as simple as the analysis or the generation of insights or evidence or results out of the analysis of real-world data. What does that mean? It means that in order to generate real-world evidence, we get 2 ingredients, actually, the data and the analytics. And I think we can all agree that analytics are at the reach of everyone, but what plays as a challenge today is the access to data. Some talks about data is the new oil. Real-world evidence would be the analogy of the refining that oil. So when we talk about real-world data are related to any data that relates to patient. And by the way, you generate real-world evidence in all sectors, not only in healthcare. So, and healthcare actually is one of the latest players, although it plays a very important role to rely on real-world evidence. Commercial sector, banks are all relying on real-world evidence since ages. And we will see why and understand why it came so lately to pharma industry, but also to healthcare sector. Coming back to the definition of real-world data, so it's not just these flashy cubes, but actually everything that touches to patients and inform about patients can be considered as real-world data. So today we can talk about EMR, which is the most frequent, but also one of the most biased, because it may contain a lot of error, but we can consider data sets that are available at pharma company, but also healthcare sectors or healthcare body about PSPs, claim data, local or national registries, trial data. When we talk about trial data, we have pragmatic data, clinical trials that are conducted in very real settings, digital apps, social media, data lakes. Well, there is plenty of sources that can be used for these analyses so we can generate real-world evidence. Again, these data sources can be, I've mentioned some of the most exhaustive, but just to trigger thought process or thought provoking on where we can get data, all data that can talk about patient journey, HCP practice, post-marketing monitoring, safety signals, whatever can tell more about disease epidemiology, standards of care, cost, identify unmet needs, etc. All these elements or all these sources can constitute for you I would say a source for real-world data, okay? Then, when we come to the point of RWE, RCT, which one to go for, etc., I think there are 4 major questions that everyone has to ask about. The first one is the purpose. What is it that we try to demonstrate? Some of my colleagues talked about effectiveness, efficacy. That's one of the most important ones. In phase where in early phases in R&D, you talk more about efficacy, while in real-world setting, you talk about effectiveness or efficiency. The second one is the setting. Are we in an experimental setting? Are we selecting very specific procedures to be administered and that are out of the practice by the physicians on our patient population? The third one is this patient population. Are we tackling an homogeneous population or heterogeneous. Of course, real-world evidence will tackle more on a non-harmonized population in order to enlarge the scope of impact. And finally, the intervention itself. Would there be a medication that is administered or a diagnostic that is administered that is not on the practice? Based on these 4 questions, we can already identify some contrast between both real-world evidence and RCTs. But the main one would be the guidelines that we follow. In GCP, I think both Alaa has highlighted the importance of ICH guidelines. So the drivers, or I would say the main regulation that drives clinical trial would be the GCP. For real-world evidence, it's totally the opposite. And we cannot apply these GCPs to real-world evidence, otherwise it would be as acting as a challenge in the implementation or the generation of evidence. So for evidence or real-world evidence, we tend more to be using or following the good epidemiological practice. Someone of you knows about the epidemiological practice? Well, so this is what we follow. The table highlights the main difference between real-world evidence and RCT, but the context is not about talking about the difference, but how these differences comes to complement each other, because that's the truth today. And I think what has been said by my colleague before me is that we can conclude that clinical trial, depending on their objectives and what real-world data provide before clinical trial and after clinical trial, plays a complementary role to understand the whole product life cycle, the whole disease journey, the patient journey, and the epidemiology. So this slide is a bit long, but I'll try just to illustrate about it. Today, many players can benefit from real-world evidence, mainly regulators, the R&D departments within industry, healthcare technology or health technology assessment, patient and caregivers, clinicians and payers. All at their stage have an interest in generating evidence so that it plays a role for whatever they are trying to demonstrate, whatever they are trying to accomplish in their daily practices. Now the part related to optimization. Everyone talks about AI. How can AI be coupled to real-world data and provide us efficient or groundbreaking solution? AI today is used in, I would say, a complementary model with data in dose optimization. So based on the history, the utilization of data could tell us what could happen in the future. Same thing for prediction of responses in terms of population. When you have a cohort of hundreds of thousands of millions probably of patients that reacted differently to several drugs, the artificial intelligence coupled to this data can predict whether a drug would be successfully providing an impact or even having a positive response or a negative one with a patient. Study data and design and analytics. A lot are now being practiced, mainly in pharma. I come from the industry and I can tell you that we rely a lot on data. Regulatory as well. But finally, what gathers us today is about the topic of safety, is also gathering this data with safety. And I think one of the most efficient model of PV, someone asked me a question earlier, how would be a PV, the future PV system performant? It's not about waiting for the adverse event to occur. It's probably to predict the risk of that adverse event or serious adverse event to occur so that we can put to it kind of a prophylactic action. Well, this is the part where we have, or to lean on the Gulf situation. If you want to scan the logo, the QR code, you could access the white paper. This white paper has been worked in collaboration with around 20 experts from the industry, but also from healthcare sector, but health regulatory bodies, etc., in the Gulf countries. Around 20 experts that came together and thought about how real-world evidence could be tackled in the Gulf countries and how we can access or unlock the potential of data in our region. So, this white paper has revealed 4 key elements. Actually, I'm not talking about my personal opinion towards the white paper, but more leaning on the key insights of this white paper. That the region is having a growing interest in real-world evidence and real-world data democratization. The second one is the enlargement of stakeholders. Much more stakeholders now are giving this interest to real-world evidence and real-world data, that there is a call for cooperation between the different sectors, industry, healthcare sector, healthcare practitioner, specialist, expert, and finally, the huge impact it can have on patient. So, this white paper again talks about the barrier to the adoption of real-world evidence in Gulf countries. I try to highlight the four most of them. You might find more in the article, okay? The first one is lacking a framework for real-world evidence. I said just a few minutes back that treating real-world evidence with GCP is a mistreatment, okay? So we're not using the adequate regulation to the adequate area of practice. So there is a need indeed, and that's actually a solution to the challenge, to adopt a framework for real-world evidence, and that's what the US FDA has started doing. In 2018, they have developed the first framework for real-world evidence. The second one is the lack of public confidence in sharing data. Again, a disclaimer, those are the words that are in the article, in the white paper, so I take them as rough as they are. So what does that mean? It means that today there is still kind of a, both I would say can be linked together. We have a resistance or we have a fear in treating or exchanging this data. Democratization of data is a taboo today. Talking about patients' data, aggregated or non-aggregated, represent a challenge. The third one is the skepticism in sharing this data across sector. I work for a pharma company. It's very hard to go and talk about sharing data with healthcare sector that have this data and which this data actually is being used for the sake of patients. We're not going to this approach of data to use it for our own benefits. It's really to facilitate and accelerate the obtainment of results that can serve patients. And finally, the lack of partnership and long-term collaboration between academia, between pharma company, between agencies, and so on. Then, again, the white paper tackles the action points and mitigation plan for the elements that we have discussed. So the first one is creating a robust and agile regulation for real-world data traffic and real-world evidence generation, which are two different things. The second one is reinforce the data privacy. If we are able today to put a framework for data privacy, protect the data of our patients, but not only patients, HCPs as well. So we are gathering data on a larger population. We would be able to facilitate the data traffic. The third one is the implication of high standards for evidence generation. My colleague talked about, I see it's GCP. For, again, the real-world evidence, we will talk about GEP, which are barely known in the healthcare sectors, because mostly, again, since real-world evidence is a new topic for pharma industry and for healthcare, we're still using or used to treat the real-world evidence as clinical trial, which is not right. And finally, I would bring together, both together, the partnership between, again, universities, healthcare agencies, governmental sector, private sector, industry, finally invest in robust data infrastructure. And for this point, I would highlight that, for example, Saudi Arabia is one of the first countries who have made a breakthrough. Today, they have a website called Nahar Sab. Nahar Sab is an initiative of the Saudi Health Council that have been created in 2022 that gathers open data that any researcher, any academia, any pharma company, any healthcare, I would say, practitioner can access easily and freely, extract this data based on a request, and be able to reanalyze this data. So imagine having a website where you can go without being like a researcher that have millions of funds. You could, for a free of charge request, get access to data, reanalyze it for whatever purpose you want, either to demonstrate a medical objective, a clinical objective, making a literature, not a literature review, but a review on safety events that have or might have occurred. The use of data has no limit. So depending on the framework and the objective that you have, that's what would define the best approach for you to use this data. I think with this, I believe that we're done. Yes. So if you have any question, you can connect with me, and I'll be happy to reply. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your valuable presentations, and we have learned a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you.